Dr. Rabiah Ahmad, Deputy Vice Chancellor Research and Innovation UTHM, accompanied by esteemed panelists and moderator. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera and salam Malaysia Madani. My name is Anim Zalina Azizan and I am delighted to be your Master of Ceremony for today's event. Yang berbahagia, Profesor Teknologis Dr. Rabiah binti Ahmad, Deputy Vice Chancellor Research and Innovation, come the official representative of Vice Chancellor UTHM. Yang berbahagia, Datuk Sri Norazman Ayob, Deputy Secretary General Industry, Ministry of International Trade and Industry, MITI. Yang berbahagia, Tan Sri Datuk Thian, President of the Federations of Malaysian Manifacturers FMM, come adjunct professor at Faculty of Technical and Vocational Education. Mr. Paul Yeo, Chief Executive Officer, Confexhub Sdn. Yang berbahagia, Professor Datuk Dr. Wahid Razzaly, former UTHM Vice Chancellor, come the moderator for today's event. Yang berbahagia, Professor Teknologi Dr. Azmi bin Kamis, Deputy Vice Chancellor Academic and International, Associate Professor Teknologis Dr. Aida binti Mustafa, Director of Industry Community Relations Centre, ICRC, committee members, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Tvet Expert Forum, leading Tvet issues and challenges from industry perspective. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to announce a few matters which need attention. First of all, it is a pleasure to have the cooperations from the audience to ensure that their respective mobile phones are in silent or unactivated mode. Secondly, members of the audience are not allowed to make any recording during this assembly takes place. Thirdly, the wearing of face masks, however, is strongly encouraged throughout this forum, and please ensure the health level of the attendees are in a good condition. The attendance link for those attending online will be shared in the comment section at the end of this forum session. Should be any attendees encounter any problem, please contact our committee members who is ready to help, and hopefully with the cooperation for all of us here today, this forum on this evening will run successfully. Thank you for your cooperation. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we have gathered here today to discuss the leading Tvet issues and challenges from industry perspective. And I thrilled to see so many passionate individuals in attendance, from academicians, non-academic members, students, Tvet experts, practitioners, and industry players. We have a diverse range of perspectives and experiences that will undoubtedly enrich our discussion today. Throughout the day, we will hear from a variety of speakers, participate in engaging panel discussion, and have the opportunity to network and connect with others who share our interests. I would like to extend a special thank you to our organizer, the Industry Community Relations Centre, ICRC, and as well as Centre of Leadership and Competency, without whom this event would not be possible. So without further ado, let's get started. I encourage you all to participate, ask questions, and share your thoughts and ideas throughout the day. Thank you for joining us, and let us make this happen an unforgettable experience. Ladies and gentlemen, before we begin our event, let us all ask a blessing from the Allah Almighty. I am pleased to invite Al-Fadil Ustaz Muhammad Lutfi bin Solehan to lead us in prayer. Please welcome Al-Fadil Ustaz Lutfi to recite the dua.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil mursalin Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammadin tibbil qulubi wa dawaiha wa afid abdani wa shifaiha wa nur absar wa jaliha bihaqil azamati zatika birahmatika ya arhamar rahimin. Sungguhnya kami berhimpun pada hari ini bagi menyatakan kesyukuran di atas kurniaan kamu yang tidak ternilai. Jadikanlah kami hamba-hambamu yang sentiasa bersyukur di atas segala nikmat yang dianugerahkan kepada kami. Ya Allah, Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim, sungguhnya Engkau maha mengetahui bahawa keberadaan kami di sini ingin menerima ilmu-Mu serta mencapai keridaan-Mu. Justru berkatilah rahmatilah Tvet Expert Forum, leading Tvet issues and challenge from industry perspective. Kurniakanlah pada kami ilmu-Mu, sinalah kami hati-hati kami dengan cahaya taufik dan hidayah-Mu. Semoga dengannya kami mudah menerima dan menghayati segalanya dan mengamalkannya. Ya Allah, Ya Dzal Jalali wal Ikram, Ya Allah, kurniakanlah kepada kami kekayaan ilmu pengetahuan dan hiasilah diri kami dengan sifat mahmudah. Hindarilah diri kami dari sifat mahzmumah. Muliakanlah kami dengan pandangan rahmat-Mu dan anugerah kami dengan keredaan-Mu, serta kurniakan kami segala kebaikan di dunia dan kebaikan di akhirat. Ya Allah, Ya Muhaimin, Ya Aziz, Ya Ghaffar, Kau tenangkan hati kami dengan cahaya petunjuk-Mu. Bukanlah kepada kami pintu hikmah-Mu dan limpahkan kepada kami di atas hazanah rahmat-Mu. Rabbana atina fid dunya hasanah wa fil akhirati hasanah wa qina adzabannar. Wa sallallahu alaihi wasallam Muhammad wa ala alihi wasallam. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.
Thank you to Al-Fadhil Ustaz for leading us in a dua recitation. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to introduce the newly appointed Deputy Vice Chancellor, Research and Innovation at UTHM, Professor Technology Dr. Rabiah Ahmad, who will be delivering a welcoming speech for us today. Please join me in welcoming Professor Technology Dr. Rabiah to the stage with a round of big applause.
Thank you very much, Puan Hanim. Saya orang baru. Right. Okay. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh, and a very good afternoon to distinguished panels of the forum. Honorable Datuk Sri Norazman Ayob, Deputy Secretary General of Industry from the Ministry of International Trade and Industry, MITI, Honorable Tan Sri Dato So Thian Lai, Presidents of Federations of Malaysia Manifacturers, FMM, respected Mr. Paul Yeo, Chief Executive Officer of Confexhub Sdn, distinguished moderator of the forum, mentor saya, Professor Dato Insinyur Technologist Dr. Wahid Razzaly of UTHM Emeritus Professor. Ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor to participate in today's forum entitled Leading Tvet Issues and Challenge from Industry Perspective, attended by respected participants from various communities, industries, and universities. It is indeed a great pleasure to be able to connect physically after a long haul of virtual meets. Ladies and gentlemen, the world has changed a great deal since the pandemic, and the opportunity to exchange insight and discuss problems and challenges in an atmosphere of shared enlightenment and respect as we have today is very much encouraged. We are fortunate indeed that even during the pandemic, we can still continue much of our work in university, educating our students, conducting our research, and having meetings online. Thus, this forum today would serve as one of numerous efforts to intensify efforts for strategic partnership with all our stakeholders, and to reconnect the dots during the physical absence. In my brief remarks to the forum today, I will address the themes of leading Tvet and the roles of universities, especially UTHM, leading the way towards Malaysia Madani. To achieve Malaysia Madani, technical and vocational education, known as TVET, play imperative roles in integrating the three pillars of sustainability, which is in Malay kemampanan, well-being, kesejahteraan, and innovation, daya cipta. TVET, technical and vocational education and training, in essence refers to all forms and levels of education and training which provide knowledge and skill related to occupants in the various sectors of economy and social life through formal, non-formal, and informal learning methods in both school-based and work-based learning contexts. It is not limited to learnings and developing work-related skills and mastery of underlying knowledge and scientific principle, but also providing economic growth by increasing the productivities of workers. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm also come from Amton families, and I think TVET is actually part of, orang kata apa tu? Dalam hati, dalam jiwa. And I'm really menjiwai TVET, and I hope that, you know, insyaAllah we will bring something to UTHM. Saya sambung semula. Tvet should be regarded as an enabler to face the VUCA, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous environment, since one of its core pillars, creativity and innovation. This means that TVET graduates who should be able to resolve many challenges by providing unorthodox and creative solutions while meeting the demands from the industries. And Alhamdulillah, there's so many industries in front of me here. And Tvet is seen as the way forward to ensure Malaysia's sustainability and continuous economic growth. This is one of the reasons why TVET has become a national agenda, where in 2022 budget, RM 6.6 billion had been allocated to strengthen Tvet initiatives. Alhamdulillah. As the final point of this theme, we can reflect that today's greatest challenge in the world, such as rapid technological advancements and many others, are far beyond the capacity of any single university to grapple with successfully. This basic reality highlights the importance of industry, community, university collaborations and engagement. And I think as MTON, this is our main responsibilities. Given today's growing global needs for research and education in a broad range of fields, it makes perfect sense that universities should hold collaborations with their stakeholders to be one of their most important priorities. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank everyone for your commitments and attendance to today's forums, and please use this opportunity to gain insights and share concerns with regards to Tvet. Thank you.
Right, thank you so much to Professor Rabia for the outstanding of welcoming speech. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now the time to begin our forum discussion, and I am pleased to invite our esteemed panel and moderator to the stage. Our panelists today includes Yang Berbahagia Datuk Sri Norazman Ayob, Deputy Secretary General Industry from Ministry of International Trade and Industry, and I was told that Datuk Sri also is an adjunct professor under ICRC. And Yang Berbahagia Tan Sri Datuk Soh Thian Lai, President of the Federations of Malaysian Manifacturers, which is adjunct professor for FPTV. Mr. Paul Yeo, Chief Executive Officer, Confexhub Sdn Bhd, and they are all experts in their respective fields. They bring a wealth of knowledge and experience to our discussion, and I am certain that their insight will be a great value to all of us. And our moderator, tak lain tak bukan, orang Melayu kata, okay, for the event today is Yang Berbahagia Profesor Insinyur Teknologis Datuk Dr. Wahid bin Razzaly, our former UTHM Vice Chancellor, who is well known for his exceptional skills and ideas in Tvet, and will be leading the discussion and keeping us focused on the agenda. So without further ado, I would like to invite our panelists and moderator to the stage to begin our forum session. Let's give them a round of applause and show our appreciation for their dedication and hard work. And also I would like to invite to all the participants to come forward or sit forward in front of this. Still there is an empty chair in front. All right, Dato, Yang Berbahagia Dato, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Madam Hani. Ladies and gentlemen, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I think all salutation has been taken care of, so I don't have to repeat that due to time constraint. And for all we know that we start together and we have got to finish together. So Tan Sri will have to leave at 4, so everybody will have got to finish at 4. Sorry. No, he's a very busy man. It's for the country purpose, so it's no issue about that. Okay. I guess let me just begin with now. Malaysia is at the crossroad. We have got some dilemmas all through, politically, economically, socially, and almost in every field. And as said by Prof. Rabia, that we are so VUCA. So VUCA means that we don't know what's going to happen next. And also, the issue of Tvet is always at the forefront of newspaper. Recently, our professors wrote or was quoted by media as having to say, industri jangan tahu mengaut keuntungan sahaja. Mana Prof. Razzaly? It's not around here? Okay. And then we come to the question of leadership. Can all leadership like me, conventional, lead a new organization for the future? Or can a future leadership, like for example, Paul, looks boyish, strong thinking cap, lead a conventional organization for the future? So these are among the issues that we'll have to discuss. And among these 3 guys, professional and also experts, they are all in a meeting room. I know what is in their mind. They work hard. They are Tvet experts. But one thing that I would like to appreciate, that they work for the national interest. And please give a big hand for them. And despite that we have a lot of, I think, mistake here and there, and also problems, but we have lots of opportunities. We had what we call membership to Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, which accounts for about, I think, 29% of the world trade. When we are also members to the what we call CPTPP, Comprehensive Progressive Trans-Pacific Partnership, that account also for a sizable market size of the economy. And also, we are into the OBOR, One Belt, One Road. So that's another opportunities that we have got to, to look into and strongly, adapt to the situation. And this call for a strong leadership. So, despite that, I think the recently announced budget 2023 with about 372 billion with a deficit of 85 billion. Who are going to make up this deficit? So these are also an issue. So, but don't worry that I think I would like just to go back into what's happening in the 60s when Malaysia and Singapore was together. That our GDP per capita was about the same. But 2021 now it is nearly sevenfold, not to our advantage, but to Singapore advantage. So is that something that, ladies and gentlemen, we have got to think about, and these three gentlemen will have got to work out for us, because they are the leaders. Leaders will have got to lead. So that's basically what it is. And also that we know that the processes of work changes very fast. With digitalization, it changes a lot, and a lot more to come. So we are not in position, perhaps, if we don't work very hard to compete globally, not to say at the ASEAN level. So today, we have these three outstanding gentlemen, and I would like to introduce later, possibly during my question, as to Datuk Sri Norazman Ayob, Deputy Sdn. I would, when I read through his profile, I would say that he is the gatekeeper of our economy with respect to industry. So he's the one who will take charge of that. And secondly, a very noble young Tan Sri Dato Thian, I would call him as Mr. President of the industries, because he holds as the president of the Federation of Malaysian Manifacturers. And Paul Ayob, CEO of Confexhub, whom we had also MOU with UTHM, with him, I thought that he represents the young generation, millennials. Okay, dekat sikit. The millennials, okay, but I guess his age is not well represented. I thought he's 35, but he is 53 actually. So these are the leaders, and I would like to, take this opportunity as well to thank you that all of three of you, they have been supporting UTHM all along in many ways, and I hope they would continue in their capacity helping UTHM despite their busy schedules for the nation. All right. So I would like just to introduce this discussion outlines, Tan Sri, Dato Sri, and also Mr. Paul, that you can elaborate on top of my question, anything at all. But please adhere to time, because we've got to finish at 4. So when I knock into the mic, so your time is off.
Okay.
And also, ladies and gentlemen, you have got lots of questions to ask, and I guess you have got to ask tough questions for the country, not for yourself, to enlighten Tvet for a higher level. Okay. So let me begin with my first question to Yang Bahagia Datuk Sri Norazman. Before that, I would like to introduce who is our Yang Bahagia Datuk Sri Norazman. He is the Sdn of MITI industry, and he is a problem solver. As I've said, that when I profile him, he is the gatekeeper of Malaysian industries to the outside world. He did a lot of negotiation. He did a lot of problem solving. That's why my question is, it's not a tough one, but I think it's a good one. Why the closure of businesses globally in the US, Europe, Malaysia is not exception, that you see. why this phenomenon is quite rampant, and how do we avoid that to happen in Malaysia? 7 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera. Good afternoon. First and foremost, thank you everyone, especially to Professor Doctor for the introduction. I'm not sure whether I'm a problem solver, but I think I asked a lot of probing questions being in the government, even to industries. I'm good friends to Tan Sri So, myself, Dato Dr. Yo as well, friends from FMM. To your question, Professor, I think this question of closure of businesses, the pandemic that occurred in 2020 is basically unprecedented. It's unprecedented in the sense that we never thought that since the Spanish flu, in the earlier last century, would actually occur on a much more deeper and broader scale, as well as in terms of the velocity. And nobody would have guessed that with this pandemic, I would say globally, there is a lockdown affecting, I wouldn't say there's no country that is basically exempted, including, of course, in Malaysia. So it's unprecedented in the sense that we never thought this would happen. It's also unprecedented in the sense that it, therefore, then, unprecedented in the sense that there is no playbook by which the government can use in terms of implementing measures to help mitigate the devastating consequences of this pandemic. Number one, of course, in terms of public health. But from MITI's perspective, it's about the economy. So, as you know, the initial lockdown was from March until May. It's about 2.5 months. Then, of course, subsequent to that, there are two further lockdowns, so to speak. And in each and every of these lockdowns, there are businesses that are not allowed to operate. You know, the government specified very clearly that only essential sectors are allowed to operate. I remember when the first lockdown was initiated, FMM, Tan Sri So, and a couple of other industry associations have worked together with MITI to determine how do we allow businesses, particularly those from the essential sectors, to operate. Now, as we go along, we understand that this differentiation between what is essential and non-essential is not that easy to make. For example, if you're talking about a loaf of bread, say gardenia bread, you would think that the flour, the ingredients that goes into making the bread will be considered as essential. But then again, what about the plastic packaging? What about the ink that is used to print on the plastic packaging? What about the security seal? All these are also considered essential. Although initially you may have thought that these are non-essential, right? What has plastic industry got to do with the making of a bread, right? So therefore then we move away from that and to take a better approach towards developing SOPs in terms of allowing business to operate. Now, even after the pandemic, even we have moved on to endemic and now we have reopened our economy, but the consequences still remain in that sense. There was disruption of supply chain. As I mentioned just now, even when it comes to making a loaf of bread, the supply chain will consist of other industries, for example, got to do with plastics, got to do with printing. So when one particular business closed down, there will be a domino effect, whereby the suppliers that are supplying to that particular business will also be affected. Now, number two is also, so during the pandemic, as we know, inventories were already built up. Demand was low. So when the borders reopen, when the economy starts to reopen or resume basically, you will see that there's a pent-up demand. So when demand is more than supply, because as I mentioned just now, because of the disruption in supply chain, so your supplies cannot keep pace with the demand, especially when it comes to electronics, right? And this is where then slowly the price pressure increase, leading to what we call inflation. So when you have inflation, then the most common policy adopted by central banks around the world, including US Federal Reserve and our Bank Negara, is to interest rate hikes. And when increase interest rates, of course, you know what's going to happen, increase in cost of doing business. At the same time, there's also the geopolitical conflict between Russia and Ukraine, which again, just as the pandemic, nobody would have thought of. Russia and Ukraine combined together supply nearly 30 to 40% of the world's supply of wheat, sunflower, maize. These are what we call as essential for food security, particularly in Europe. Again, when that happens, not only do you have disruption in the supply chain, but price increase. Russia is also a major supplier of fertilizer. They also is a major supplier of gas to Europe. So all this, including, as I mentioned just now, have add on the pressure, therefore causing businesses to either take steps to scale down or to even tutup lah. Right? So in short, and of course there are other in current developments, particularly in Europe, when people talk about ESG, which is also very important to be taken into consideration, and where some companies are not able to quickly adapt to it, then they risk also falling behind and may even basically not be able to continue business because all their customers will demand as such. Thank you.
A question coming soon.
Thank you, Dr. So you say five minutes of our time, so you can recollect that after on my second question, or you can give away to Tan Sri later on. Okay, Tan Sri. The question is, following what Dato Sri Razzaly said, that closure of business, whether they register themselves or whether it's a bankruptcy or for whatever reasons. And before I ask this question, let me just briefly introduce Tan Sri. As I've said, that he is the Mr. President of the industries, a very strong man, has been with 6 or 7 years as president. And not only that he's also once a member of board of MQA and a lot more. So he has left his business, YKG1, to a safe hand, but he's still a businessman. But he spent most of his time for Malaysia to make sure that our product and services is sellable and also is still on the market. So it's quite a long CV. So what I would say that it is very, not old, but a wise man. He represents the not so old generation that leads the industries. But thank you, Tan Sri, for still leading FFM, and I hope that you will still there, stay there, and remains apolitical. That's most important, so that you won't jump yourself into a situation, and one day you are good, and the next day you are bad. So please do that for Malaysia. Okay, Tan Sri, that you know that products includes even your smiles is a product. So if Malaysians doesn't smile anymore, tourists won't come in. But that smile is along what we call product and services. But what I'm worried is when our product and services don't sell anymore in the local and international market. And as Mr. President, you are solely responsible for that mistake. So how do you explain that?
This question is very tough, you know. First of all, Yang Bahagia Professor T.S. Rabia, and also Yang Bahagia Professor IR T.S. Dr. Wahid, and also Professor Rashid and Professor Jarani. I remember 2019, I was appointed as this adjunct professor. So today, I come here because there is one famous economics Nobel Prize winner say, no free lunch. So I need to come here to do my work, Professor. But I want to share with you, after the appointment me as an adjunct professor, I have not given a thought to any students yet. That I hope so. I will do one lecture very soon. But FMM has signed one MOU with University, Tun University Malaysia, and we will provide all the opportunities for the Tvet faculties, graduates. When you are graduates, FMM, we have about 12,000 direct and indirect members, and manufacturing sector, we have about 2.5 million workers. We will help you to place all your graduates into our 21 industry groups. Don't worry. You graduates, you come to FMM, we help you to place. Whether successful or not successful, it depends on the companies, but we will assist all the Tvet faculties, your graduates, to be placed. Also on apprenticeship, you need our help. That's why we sign memorandum of understanding, bukan memorandum of undone. Ini memorandum of action. Okay. All right. I want to share with you is that your question is whether products don't sell in the local and international market. How do you see this issue, right? In actual fact, I want to share with you is Malaysian had exported 1.52 trillion of products. SMEs take up about 22 to 25%. So it means that there are many of the products not able to make it to the global markets. But there are still products around 20% by SMEs made into global market. So it means that out of these industries, they are still capable, able companies have the talents to do their R&D, also to assist the companies in the process, and at the same time to know global marketing. But I want to say there are 4 causes that I want to show you the slide. The next slide, there are 4 causes always happen to SMEs that hamper them to be global market players. Now, one causes is on the target markets. They can't access a good target markets. Sometimes we know the target markets, but because they are not able to package the products to that particular markets, and sometimes they face some issue. Recently, I quote example that like Labo Grove, some are small, they just, 3-4 years ago, Labo Grove at the top. There are also new players go in. But sometimes they will face the issues on the social issues, like forced labor issue, all this and that. The target market, they must know. That industries in the Europe, especially or Americas, they must be very careful on their target markets. This is one of them. And second is how the quality of the products that they want to do. Sometimes they think that it's quite easy to export to ASEAN, okay? Or almost the same qualities. But they go to USA, they go to European Union, or they go to Japan, Korea, then the qualities will be different, because you need to compete their local companies able to produce high quality products. This is one of the causes that might make their product fail. And the third causes may be that our market research is not properly done. This is one of the issues that a lot of SMEs not able to. But based on Malaysia's export statistic, the almost 75% exports are large companies, multinational companies. Is happen in Malaysia. So now how Malaysian companies, if their products not able to fill international requirements, what shall they do? So another one is talk about creativity and innovation. This is another, the fault causes that sometimes our manufacturers in Malaysia, they cannot differentiate their products to meet the international needs, what we call market or product differentiations. Important is how you create the difference. My products able to sell, let's say, in European Unions. So now I want to put my views is that the local companies are still capable, but the SMEs, especially, they must train their locals' expertise and also talents developments. Although SMEs, they still do not venture into IR 4.0 example, process improvement, and also get in professional to assist. Some not even have an accountant, SMEs, some even no accountants, no engineers. The owners, they cover everything, but this is not now that you are able to do it. So I view that, Professor, for Malaysia to be able to compete, so that our end product is not considered the end, we need to have more skilled workforce, like University Tun Hussein Malaysia, like that. We have faculty of Tvet. This is the area that important to have talents grooming. Now, the industry will play our part. That is to reduce the mismatch between the Tvet graduates and the industry ones. And with this matching perfect, then we are able to get in more Tvet graduates to help the productivity. So this is my thoughts on when you mentioned that, how do you see this issue if the product and service don't sell in the local and international markets? We can sell, but we have not achieved our requirements. We need to improve a lot on our skills, on our technological advancements, and also on our marketing skills. Thank you. This I want to share with you.
Thank you, Tan Sri. He still defends his body that Malaysia still can be sellable. Okay, thank you, Tan Sri. All right. So next, I think I would like to introduce. I thought he represent the millennials, even though he is at 53. I remember that I once together with Tony Buzen, and he said that now the business of the day or the values of the day is how do we manage intelligence. So you are the right man for this, and I think Tvet leaders need to have a thought Tvet leaders. So having a span of 30 years of experiences, and also you have been with us for I think a year or so, as in our MOU, and I hope that you would be able to share with us what does it take to go into area that people don't normally go, to climb, high mountain, to go into dark pitch jungle. So these are the situations that perhaps you were or you are in now. So my question is, as a very intelligent man, so how do you focus and chart your way so that Malaysia can be, on top of the world and remain economically sustainable and with a good strategies, assuming that you are the Minister of Yang Berbahagia, Dato Sri Norazman. So what would you do? Because you represent the future waters and future hope for the country. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank UTHM for this invitation, for Confexhub and myself to be in this panel of distinguished leaders in this session itself. I think this is a very tough question, right? I think I will do my best, to fulfill the requirements as what the chairman has actually requested. I think what is key itself is to look at, for that question itself is to look into the competitiveness, the global competitiveness of the country itself, right? I think that's where I think the key area that I think we should ask ourselves, where we are right now, right? So as an organization where we are involved in digital transformation, right, in the areas of 12 different sectors, right? So what we do is that normally when we chart the forward strategy itself for a country, so normally what we would do is that we will actually use this particular model itself, right? We call it as a global competitiveness model, right? So what we do is that we actually measure in terms of the effectiveness of the country's economic growth, right? So what do we do in that area itself? We actually look at in terms of the country itself to boost productivity of existing industry, right? So like earlier on, Tan Sri was saying about the various strategy that FMM has embarked, right? So it's to look into basically how can we actually move forward itself as a country. The other area that we actually look into itself is to look into whether the country actually promotes high value industry, right? So I think from this context, what we are trying to achieve here is to move the country towards a high income nation. Yeah, so I think that's what basically Malaysia is actually aiming to look into to be a high income nation itself by 2025. The other area parameters that we actually look into itself is on the people aspect, right? Whether the economy itself is able to deliver, right, areas of high value jobs, right? So in order for us to actually to be able to deliver a high value job, we need to actually create a high value industry, right? So the other area itself is we actually look at in terms of the people side is on talent development, right? So whether the syllabus, the curriculum that we have itself from the institution here, whether they are able to chart us to solve the issue of the 21st century, or specifically in the context of the fourth industrial revolution itself, right? So whether we have actually the skill set, the workforce, and the supply itself of the talent, right, to be able to deliver in this industry. And of course, the other area that we look into itself is the inclusivity, right, in terms of women empowerment. One example, right? The other area itself we look into the marginalized communities, right? So we actually look into this area. The third area that we actually look into is which is very key. I think earlier on also has been mentioned by the panelists here, is on the planet side, right? So we look into to what extent are we addressing the climate crisis, right? So like today, as I drove here, I was stuck in a flood, right? So it's a climate crisis, right? What are we in terms of strategy-wise? Are we addressing the decarbonization of industries, right? And I think very importantly itself is we look into the circular economy aspect, right? The other last area itself we look into basically the governance, right? So whether that's a country, have we instituted basically in terms of e-government services, right? So that we can actually in terms of improve, right, the performance of basically the service delivery itself to the people and as well as industry. The good thing is that I think based on this analysis, I think Malaysia, we are at the right track, right? I think we have a very good, prudent fiscal policy, right? And also, I think the other area itself is, we talk about the various free trade agreements that we actually have, so that we can actually have free flow of our goods itself to the other countries. I think the other area itself is we also have a world-class infrastructure, right? I think in terms of connectivity, transportation, electricity, access to clean water. I think these are all areas that we have, not to mention also in terms of healthcare, high, basically adoption of ICT, and of course the last but not least also is the, what we call that, to create Malaysia as a regional education hub, right? So to answer the question itself is, in terms of moving forward, I'd like to actually propose 6 things, yeah? Some of the 6 strategies that I think will actually move us forward. I think the first one is to look into basically the increase of our productivity, right? So I think what does it mean from this itself? I think we need to adopt next level of automation, right? Earlier on we spoke about the industry 4.0. I think this is very key, right? The other area itself is to look into basically the process virtualization itself aspect, right? So that includes basically to apply things like apply artificial intelligence so that we can actually move towards what they call electric vehicle and the other technology itself. The other area itself is the R&D, right? So I think we need to, what they call that, the UTHM is actually on the right track. I think we need to boost basically our R&D itself, specifically the collaboration between industry and academia, right? So that we can actually develop a lot more local IPs, right? So that, instead of basically buying foreign products, we could actually leverage on our local product. The other area itself is to, I think we need to look into diversification to move up our industry itself into a high value chain. So what does this means itself is basically is to look into industries where we can actually develop more high income, right? To generate high income itself. So in the areas of aerospace, robotics, artificial intelligence, connective solution, and of course, very importantly itself is in the area of digital economy and smart city agenda. So with this, I think that's where we can actually move towards high income nation by creating basically high paying job. The other area itself is to look into the smart government adoption, right? I think some of this we are already experiencing in Malaysia for the last couple of years. I think it has been accelerated during the pandemic period, where all the application itself will actually be done online instead of going paperwork. And the other area itself is to moving towards net zero, right? I think Leon on the panelists talk about when we export our product to Europe, our product actually carries certain carbon footprint, right? So we need to basically be able to have that skill set itself to be able to measure, right? What are the level of carbon that is embedded in our exports, so that our counterpart in Europe and other countries, they could actually, in a sense that take into consideration itself in terms of the carbon footprint that we have. And of course, last but not least, I think this is why we are here today itself, is to basically invest into human capital, right? So in order for to achieve all the areas I just mentioned itself, I think we need to basically upskill and reskill our existing workforce. I think this is very key itself. Yeah, so that should also include basically preparation of our graduates itself to acquire future-ready skills. Thank you, Chairman. That's my question.
Thank you. I think as a minister, you always say big yes. So now you are no more a minister. So would you say the same thing?
Yes, I will.
Yes. Okay. Right. So I think for the benefit of the audience, this forum is live on Facebook, on UTHM TV. So whatever you say will be there for a very long time. So be careful with that. Okay, right. So next, this is question that relates to your leadership. So to Yang Bahagia Tan Sri, as the most significant personnel in the industries, as Mr. President, there are many things that you face, problems, day in, day out, complaints, not enough money, as you say, tak cukup wang syndrome, and many more things. But as everybody else say, that's problems is always there. But please give me one most critical problem that as a leader of, president of FMN, and the leaders of the industries in Malaysia, which means you are responsible for partly for the economy of Malaysia. What is it that you want to resolve? Just one thing at this point. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Actually, Prof, and for audience, as a president of FMM, I already worked with the 5th Prime Minister already for the last 6 years. So you can see how challenging our Malaysian industry is. But I want to say, based on what Prof you are asking me, my first concern is competitiveness of Malaysian industries, whether it's a large companies, SMEs or micros. The competition is now starting very severe. We are now under global village. We are now under borderless stage, and our products exported and also imported. And we signed so many FTAs and market access. The question is, can Malaysian industries compete in global markets or not, especially to compete with a giant country like China? Now, Malaysians still have a lot of SMEs. We have about close to 1.2 million of MSMEs, micros and SMEs. And as I said just now, only 25% are able to export. 75% still not there yet. And we have to face the challenges, not only the large country, also our neighboring countries. Now, you look at Vietnam today. 15 years ago, they are behind Malaysia, okay? Now the GDP exceeds us. Thailand is also ahead of us. We don't talk about Singapore, okay? Now, Philippines also coming out very fast. Now, I'm not saying that Malaysian companies not competitive enough. Malaysian companies can be competitive. If not, we are not able to achieve 1.552 trillion of exports. I'm talking about futures. Because Malaysians currently, our SMEs as at today, still over-dependent on the foreign workers. This is a fact. And we also face a lot of challenges how to push the Malaysian industries, especially SMEs, to venture into the advanced technology and also IR 4.0. Now, based on FMN survey, our survey, about 55 to 60% of FMN members started venture into IR 4.0 related. It's only FMN members or no? How about those about 1 millions of companies? Are they ready or not? This is the area that, as a president of a largest manufacturing association in Malaysia, we have the pressure how to convince them. Although 2018, FMM worked together with MITI, we launched the industry forward, and MITI implement readiness assessments and intervention fund. And all these things have been done. But as of today, the progress is there, but not up to our expectations. The issue is also the talents and skilled workforce. That is second issue that we are facing. Now in Malaysia, by right, we should have about 60% skilled workforce. 40% is a non-skill. But now it's the other way. It's non-skill is more than skill. So now it's the universities and Tvet institutes play important roles. Now industries, the role is how to link up. That's why the government's last year formed government industry Tvet coordination bodies. But we need to continue to push for that, because industries are the one to take in the graduate produce. And we cannot have mismatch. We cannot have the difference in the gaps of what we train and what we want. So we are thinking that train and praise or praise and train. Now, these are the issues keep on inside our industry's views. So our role, we would like to assist all the Tvet institutes and universities like MTUN to bring in the right candidates so that we are able to maintain a top 25 global trading nation. Now, if we do not have enough skilled workforce and talents, we might not maintain the top 25 trading nations, because surrounding countries, they are eyeing and compete with us. That's why we are here to work together for the betterment of our country. That's why my conclusion is competitiveness is number one. And with strong competitiveness, we are able to compete anywhere, anytime. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Tan Sri. So the word is competitive. So with respect to anything else, but products, quality, and cost matters. Yeah.
For me, it's like that. If I'm able to compete, it means that I already fulfill all the basic criteria, because quality is a necessity. Standards is a necessity. I compete with you is whether you are able to buy my products with a reasonable price and Malaysia able to generate the revenues. So quality is a must. You don't need to talk about it, because you cannot fulfill the qualities is out. Now I want to quote a simple businessman thought on 4 factors only, called PQRS: price, quality, relationship, and service. As a businessman, we only focus on these 4 only. The price, whether I can compete or not. The quality is a must, whether I can meet or surpass. Relationship is whether I am a manufacturer, I am a supplier, you are my buyers, and I keep close to you all the time, and you can come back to me. And service is to make them like customers delight. So you see me, you see my service, you are very happy with me. Malaysia is like a company. If foreign countries, if our products sell to them are good, they will come back to us. That's why, as a businessman, although we emphasize keuntungan, but I believe all businessmen talking about profitability tak ada untung, tak boleh survive lah. So you know, no profit, I cannot keep the employees, right? So you cannot upgrade. So important is the profit is reasonable, but to take good care of the growth of the company, the growth of our welfare, and the happiness of our staff is one of our key criteria for businessmen. But I still think that Malaysia's, there are a lot of rooms we need to improve, because our ease of doing business, although we rank around 12, but you look at our processes, it's quite bureaucratic a bit, so we need to further improve on that. Okay. So on this, I want to share is every one of us need to do a part to improve. What we call, just now you say Badani Kerajaan, so we say Badani Perniagaan.
Okay. Thank you. So next, following on with Tan's answer, that competitiveness is his worries today. So Paul, having been doing business in many ASEAN countries, and you are our future hope, because those industries now, if they don't change, they will vanish. So your business should grow. So taking from that competitiveness, okay, what would you do in terms of innovating competitiveness and also business competitiveness for Malaysia, assuming that you represent the future Malaysian businessmen? Just forget about the old, industries under the trees for a moment. Okay, so what would you think on that?
I think what is key itself in terms of I said, how to move Malaysia forward itself, right? I think one of the areas that I think we need to basically address here itself is the workforce, right? So the future ready workforce itself, right? So how do we actually create what we call that, a pool of talent, right? So that the industry itself will be able to actually absorb, right? And create basically a high, to move actually into a high value industry, right? So a couple of things that we actually, from our side, we actually look at itself, right? One of the areas itself is we actually look into basically the existing framework, right? The qualification framework, right? So when we look into the MQA, not just only in Malaysia, right? We look at basically the framework throughout the whole ASEAN. We realize that the framework, the qualification framework actually produces, the intention itself, there's nothing wrong with that, right? It's to produce basically academic graduates, right? I think that's very key itself, and it has been there, it has served for the purpose. I think it's done a good job, right? But moving forward in this particular 21st century, right, and not to mention the fourth industrial revolution, and of course we realize that, and we know that the post-pandemic or the COVID-19 has actually changed the entire landscape, has brought us to actually look into basically in a digital space itself, right? In a sense that we actually, I think earlier on, the question earlier on itself is we see closure of companies. Some of it is not, some of it is due to economic the low demand, right? But some of this organization, they actually move towards remote working, right? So, and we actually see a lot of organization has actually closed down their office, but move to work remotely, be it whether at home or basically to actually operate out from their regional office, right? So, I think one of the areas that I think we need to look at itself is to actually review, to look into basically a skill framework, right? Model itself, right? So in a skill framework model, we actually look into basically how we can actually develop what we call that talent. They are able to take on the future skills, in the area of, like I said, digital economy, in the area of things to do with smart city development, and so on and so forth itself. So I think we need to basically, from the angle of academia-wise, I think we need to basically look into the skill framework and to see how we can actually incorporate the skill framework into the current system that we have itself, right? So this is actually one of the areas that we actually look at it currently itself at the ASEAN region, right? And we actually realized that our neighbors have actually started to embark on this, right? Let me just quote you some example, like Singapore, right? They have actually looked into basically they call it the Singapore Skill Framework, right? So the idea of this skill framework itself is to look into how they can actually put in the high Tvet skills itself into the system, right? And train and basically is to basically upskill and reskill the existing workforce. And so much so that our counterpart, our colleague itself from the Philippines has actually picked up some of this idea and incorporated into their system, right? So, so they have actually started off with, like I said, in the area of supply chain, in the area of what they call that, even gaming as well, right? And the universities there in the Philippines has begun to actually to incorporate the Philippine skill framework into their system, right? So basically it's a merger of the qualification framework and as well as the new framework itself. So what we would like to actually suggest itself is under the Malaysian skill framework itself is to continue to work like what currently the industry has been doing itself, to actually work with basically the industry, right? Industry like people like FMM and as well as the industry, right? To basically, like I said, to map out what are the skills that are needed itself, so that they can actually put in this requirement itself when they develop basically their syllabus, their program itself for their skill framework. The other area that I'd like to actually share here itself is to, in the sense that the apprenticeship program itself, right? So currently, yes, we actually understand that the current system that we have in ASEAN itself is student that's basically study for 4 years, right? So the universities actually send them for industry training for 3 months to 6 months, right? And a lot of time when these students, graduates that actually go for this internship or apprenticeship, they don't actually do the work that they are supposed to meant to do itself, right? And I think this has got to be changed, right? And some of those models that we have actually looked into, like for example, in Germany itself, they have actually incorporated what we call this 70-30 model itself, where 70% of the time itself, they actually go on apprenticeship, right? And 30% of the time, they actually go to classroom, right? So even at the 70% when they actually work at the industry, they actually work on the actual real work that they are doing based on the course that they are pursuing, right? And so they have actually a mentor that actually work through with them itself during this 70% of the time, right? So, and the interesting part about this is that if you look at the German models itself is when the university actually places them at the industry during this 70% of the time, they get actually paid full salary, right? So by the time they actually finish their 4 years, so they actually get 3 years of full experience. And not just that itself, they actually get paid 3 years of salary. And that model actually has helped them to actually, in a sense, that to finance their education, right? And looking at this model, I believe we could actually take heed about some of this experience and some of this model itself, and to basically move away from government-funded education, right? So that the government funding itself budget has not been pressured itself to actually deliver the education, right? The other area that I would like to also suggest itself is a dual track system. I understand that Malaysia has already embarked on that, right? But I think we need to actually, in a sense, enhance it further itself, right? At the post-secondary education, right? So unfortunately, today, not just only in Malaysia, but in the rest of the ASEAN country, when we talk about Tvet, we talk about low Tvet, right? So I think in the case of Germany, Switzerland itself, they actually split the student itself into two streams. One is basically to move into the academic base, then the other 50% or more towards basically the Tvet education, right? So I think this is an area that I think we should actually look into it. And of course, the other area itself is the upskilling and reskilling program itself that we need to actually put in place to train the current workforce that we have here itself, right? Be it from the MSME and as well as basically the, what they call that, the enterprise side, right? In order for us to actually move forward itself, to be able to embrace the technology. I think one of the key areas that we actually found out itself recently, I mean, this is a real case, right? When we actually embark on a smart city study itself, right? In terms of the implementation rate. Why is the implementation rate is at that level, right? We actually realized that two things. Number one itself is the workforce who works in the local government, the municipalities, they do not actually understand having the skill set itself that's actually required to be able to have a dialogue itself with the technology provider. That's number one. Number two is the technology that we have today, we actually import them, right? So when you import them during this period of pandemic, obviously we do not have the sufficient budget, so it becomes very expensive. So with the right skill that through the universities itself, I think we would be able to help us to develop basically the relevant technology, our own IPs, right? So I think this is basically what I feel that is required moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. I think you talked about many things, and one of the things is qualification framework. And I guess that is already in there. NOS is a skill framework, so it's already there. And that's why the MTON is there, so that it would cater for the skill sets for the higher level, which is at the level 6, 7, and 8, which is at the degree, master, and postgraduate. So that's the reason why MTON, or these 4 universities, is there. And I guess the issue probably is the implementation. Okay, so I guess that you talk a lot about SLDN, which, to my understanding, was launched, but the industry's take-up is quite so and so. So who is to be blamed? So is it the industries, or the MITI, or the universities, or Mr. President? So let's FMM, yeah. Mr. President of FMM. So, okay, right. So I know that the issues is integrated and is revolving around, and nobody is to be blamed at this point. Okay. So now let's go back to YBhg Datuk Sri. That, as I've said, that SME is, I would say, slightly less welcoming. Not really hate this, having interns, trainees into this, except for Mr. President, who is willingly accepting UTHM students to FMM. So, Dato' Sri, if the industries are not, or slightly unwelcoming, I would say, slightly unwelcoming, because of, many reasons, as gatekeeper for the country, whom we say that has been that Tansi said, and also Paul said, that our workers need to be upgraded into to be skilled workers, and they need to be taught skills, not academic things. So, as demonstrated by SLDN, Scheme Latihan Dual National, I know that it was more than 10 years ago. It's not getting much support from the industries. Its data speaks for itself. So, what would you do in terms of training so that they will be more skillful, and also in terms of digitalization, which you launched together with Tansi just now? Tansi said that MITI and also FMM launched industry-powered for the futures. So therefore, to help university around, to help our graduates to be able to be skillful, to be on the high technology side, what would you suggest to do, Datuk?
Thank you. I think let me just refer to this white paper, or this paper written by our former PTPTN chairman, Wan Saiful Wanjan, which was published by the Yusof Ishak Institute in 2020. It says that from the 1997 till 2020, 82 billion ringgit was spent by government through PTPTN, with loans disbursed to 3.5 million students. And from the 3.5 million students, out of 2.4, so from the 3.5 million, 2.4 million students graduated. But from these 2.4 million students, only 48% gradually repay their loans or fully paid off, which means 51 or 52% of the PTPTN loans were non-performing. For perspective, on average, Malaysian banks' average non-performing loan ratio is between 1.5 to 2%. If a bank got 50% non-performing, dah lama bungkus. Bungkus. Okay? The bank will have to wind up. PTPTN have nearly 50% NPL. So then a study was done in 2019, of course. Then there was a survey carried out about 1,800 students, out of which 87.7% of the 1,800 over students are earning an income of 4,000 ringgit and below. In 2019, the B40 household monthly income is 4,800. Tadi 87% earning below 4,000, meaning 87% are B40, you know. Okay? And out of this so-called 1,800 over students, 13% have no regular income. We are talking about graduates, university graduates, not Tvet. 13% have no regular income. 36% is earning below 2,000 ringgit. Below 2,000 ringgit. Just now I passed by a KFC here, before on the way here, singgah. Minum sekejap lah. And outside the entrance, they are hiring. You know what was the wage offered for a waiter? 1,500 ringgit. Ni KFC ni, 1,500 ringgit. And that 2019 punya survey tadi kata 36% are earning 2,000 ringgit and below. Meaning graduates now have to work at KFC, right? And the government spends so much every year on education alone. Perhaps Malaysia is one of the highest countries that spends in terms of education. OECD average education spending is 3.4%. Malaysia spending is between 3.8 to 4% of our GDP is on education. That's how much Malaysian government spend on education alone. Put that in the perspective of a company. If say I ask a company, all right, to spend that much of money, do you think the company will do so? If the return on their investment is so low, they will not. So when you look at that, now coming back to your question as to why there's no take-up, I think that we have to ask from both sides of the coin. Number one, are our students equipped with the necessary skill sets to meet the demands of the industry? And I'm just not talking about technical skills here. I'm not talking about technical skills here. There are students who are very good academically in terms of the technical knowledge. But out there, it's just not about technical knowledge. Your soft skills are also equally important, if not far more important. If you have very good technical knowledge, but you can't communicate, you can't convey, you can't articulate your views, there's no point. All right, everything is just here. Soft skills is important, communication skills, English language proficiency. There was a report written by a consulting company in Vietnam that says that in this region, Singapore has the highest percentage in terms of the workforce that can speak English, followed by Philippines. Third, guess what? You will have expected Singapore, perhaps second is Malaysia, but no, now it's Philippines. Okay. After Philippines, by right should be Malaysia lah kan? No. Thailand now has higher percentage of workforce that can speak English at 27%. Malaysia, 21%. Indonesia is catching up at 10%. Imagine this. Many years ago, we were number 2, after Singapore perhaps, in terms of our workforce that can speak English. Now, so these are some of the things. Of course, from the industry side, just now Tan Sri So was saying about competitiveness. Now, competitiveness, well, if I refer to Michael Porter, generic strategies, there are 2 types of strategy. Cost leadership and differentiation. If you adopt cost leadership, there's only so much that you can do. You can never reduce your cost up to 0. There's only so much, right? Especially when you need to rely on, say, utilities, where utility cost is beyond your control. All right? So a company that adopt cost leadership can only do so much, but it is differentiation. How you differentiate yourself from competitor by offering higher value added products. Products with unique offerings, which means you have to move up the value chain. In order to move up the value chain, there are 2 things which you can do. Automate, digitalize, or having higher skilled talent. So that's the question. Right? But drawing to what I've just mentioned, and in that paper published by PTPTN, that states 36% of those students who graduated earning below 2,000 ringgit. So what's happening now? Does it mean that our industries are not moving up the value chain as fast as they should be? Is it because they are complacent, because government have given so much leeway, these subsidies, access to foreign workers? And this is what happened during the pandemic in 2020, where companies that have gone on to automation, that have gone to digitalization, fare better than those companies that have not embarked on these initiatives. Because those companies that have higher level of automation or digitalization are allowed to operate faster, because you have less labor. So the risk of having COVID-19 cluster in your factory is lower. But if you are labor intensive, the risk is higher. So therefore, I think this is a question of, to answer to a question, why is it a low take-up rate? I think both sides will have to ask this question. From the training providers, the universities have to ask, are you doing enough? And of course, from the industries. And one more thing is, I think Paul has mentioned about upskilling and reskilling. I think upskilling and reskilling, yes, we need it when there is a structural shift in terms of industry. For example, from IR 3.0 moving to IR 4.0. So the existing workforce, you have to give them the opportunities to upskill and reskill. But when the government needs to spend so much on upskilling and reskilling graduates that just come out from universities, that is something wrong. That is something wrong. Because by right, the graduate should be ready for the world. If you come out from university and you still need another 6 months to a year for reskilling, upskilling, something is wrong somewhere. That one, I don't have an answer. I have to ask Ministry of Higher Education. Thank you.
They're very polite not to ask us, because most of us in this hall, they are academicians. Never mind about that. So I think thank you, Tan Sri, Dato Sri, and also Mr. Paul. Now I was given a message that we should go straight through Q&A. So before closing for 1 minute for each of you, so I would like to ask for, if any of you would like to, have a very strong, Q&A question. Yes, please. Yes, okay.
Assalamualaikum and very good afternoon. Yang berbahagia Datuk Sri, Dato Tan Sri. My name is Razzaly Haji Norali. I'm representing GKN Aerospace in Gelang Patah. We are a maintenance and repair and overhaul facility for aviation components. So that's a very weird thing to have in Gelang Patah because it's like no man's land. And all of a sudden you have an aviation company there. Sorry. So I'm a HR practitioner for more than 30 years. Been talking about starting from the days of vocational to Tvet now. That's like more than, 30 years, I guess. And as aptly what Datuk Sri mentioned earlier, we like almost nowhere. Right? So we just turning around and around and around, and we are getting nowhere. So I take another quote from Datuk Sri with regards to the quality of English. Whether they are graduates, whether they are skilled workers, there's no difference today, right? So 30 years ago, I used to talk to university in the northern state. I was pushing for having strong English in the graduates. And 30 years on, we still have the same problem. Right? And the best thing is, 30 years later, where you have all this new Gen Z with a smartphone on their hands, and they still struggle with English. I'll give you a very good example. When we started hiring, GKN Aerospace is a new investment 4 years ago. Dato Sri will be there tomorrow, inshallah. So I did an open interview for 2 days. I had like 500 applicants from all across Malaysia, basically, right? And I've met graduates who studied in Russia, Poland, France, in aviation, aeronautics. I've met vocationalists who came from Kuala Lumpur, Singapore, Johor, and I'm surprised that number one, they don't speak good English. When we started our interview in English, they're going to say alamak. Right? So that is a very, very sad development for me as an industry player. Right? So how do we go about this? Now, GKN Aerospace, when we started at a high bar because we are introducing Industry 4.0 level technology. Now, what is this? I'll take you to your own house, right? In your own house, 20 years ago, you have washing machine, maybe, old washing machine. 20 years ago, it's manual. So you have 2 pots, right? One for wash, one for dry. Nowadays, your washing machine is fully auto, AI provided. Only at the moment, it cannot talk to you back. Maybe 3 years from now, you ask, Sarah, basuh. Baik, Tuan. Right? Don't laugh. We have Siri on our pocket now. Right? So that can happen. That's AI. So the machine that GKN brought into Malaysia is similar to that level. Now, my challenge when I was hired 4 years ago, I was told, you need to hire the new generation because they are the ones going to champion this technology. Now, when I go to universities, when I go to institutions across Malaysia, now I had a scare. I was in, I wouldn't name the university, so I had a scare because they are not to my level, right? So I'm not trying to ask a question. I'm not trying to answer a question, but I am an industry player, and this is what I'm facing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Razzaly. So, I think, basically, he asked you, or he asked us, why are we keep turning round and round for the last 30 years? Okay, so I guess that's a very tough question to answer. So, I guess if any of you would like to say in a few seconds, because it's a difficult question.
Important is government policies must be consistent and certainty and clarity and credibility, the 4 C's. So what Encik Azri says is, because we have many U-turns, decisions on our education blueprint. So now the governments really need to emphasize on STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So can I ask all of you, how many of you willing to advise or ask your children go for STEM? But some of you children are already very big lah. Professor Zareni sudah graduate. But some of you young one, how many of you willing to ask your children, come on, go to STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics? But do you know that in Malaysia, as of today, total student populations, less than 45% now is on STEMs. So the universities, there is one day will come, tak cukup STEM students to enroll into your faculty. It will come one day. Then your lecturers pun tak ada kerja. The professor also might lost the job. So these are issues that the science, technology, engineering, mathematics that we are pushing. Of course, you have extra English to learn. There is no harm. As what Dato Sri Norazman say is the English proficiency is one of the criteria for you to advance in your career. We don't talk about the national pride issues. We felt proud that we are able to speak Bahasa, we know Bahasa Melayu. This is a necessity because Bahasa Malaysia or Bahasa Melayu is a national language. Nothing to do with royalty on the language. We talk about how the future students, when they come out from universities, they are able to excel and progress your career and feel proud of yourself. You speak English does not mean that you are not loyal to your country. What you want is people respect me. I can speak fluent Bahasa, I can speak fluent English, and I also can speak fluent on other language. This is my thoughts. Thank you.
Okay. So the nearest person to be responsible is definitely Datuk Sri, because you are the nearest to the government. Policy was the statement that Tan Sri raised. So how do you explain that? Why round and round and round and round?
Thank you. Well, as Tan Sri mentioned, and I concur that I think there is this need for government policies to have a certain degree of certainty, clarity, and most importantly, coherence. Coherence here means, for example, like in our case, in MITI's case, we want to encourage investors, right? Say FDI, foreign direct investors. Most of them would want talent, skilled talent that can speak or are proficient in English. Perhaps at the same time, maybe perhaps Ministry of Higher Education or another ministry may have a different perspective on things, where their priorities might not be so much on English, but on certain other skill sets, for example. So this is where the coherence have to be in line, right? And similarly, like for example, we understand that some industries, they require skilled talent which are not available locally. So this is where we need to import this skilled talent, which will allow knowledge and technology transfer to our Malaysians. Because MIDA, for example, our agency, will always emphasize to our investors who come along, who wants to so-called take along or recruit this foreign skilled talent, that after X number of years, you must pass on these positions to the Malaysians. So in a way, therefore, you facilitate knowledge transfer. So these are some of the things, some of the policies that MITI in particular, that we embark on. Thank you.
Thank you. So we go for the next question, if there is. Yes. We only accept tough question.
I'll try my best. Thank you. I was intrigued and fascinated with all the points highlighted by the panels. Thank you very much indeed. Let me share some statistics regarding in 2021 from Global Edition, 50 worldwide authorized distributors of electronic devices come from all over the world except Malaysia. Okay, most of them come from Taiwan, United States, in fact, South Korea and so on. Okay, next, the most important things of all of them, the major revenue is about mobile phone, like what we are using nowadays. And in Malaysia, we do have two mobile phones company like M.Dot and also 9 Topology. However, because this is very important for our talent, as mentioned by Tan Sri, so regarding that, as you mentioned about innovation and product differentiation, what do you think? Because we don't have this kind of company, which is only 22% globally in Malaysia. However, 70-80% still not yet ready. So what's going to happen to the future of our talent? Like, for example, nowadays, I'm also using Samsung, unfortunately, but I would like to see whether in the future that when we want to send our Tvet student or Tvet graduate, scaling, upscaling, and so on, where should we send? Do we need to, I don't know whether FMM agree or not, like Dato Sri Azman, if we attract more companies like Apple's, Amazon here, then we can get more tax, and then we can, with this tax, we can spend to send our talent outside, and then when they can come to Malaysia, they can be a different person. They can also come up with a different product. Oh, that's the question. And number two is about, is that all these things happen because of the culture of Malaysian? That we think we so complacent, we don't want to do more. If we give ideas, we have to do that. So we don't want to give any ideas. So what do you think about these two questions? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. It's open to all of you.
Is UTHM provide ChatGPT? Can I have ChatGPT to answer your questions? No, I just joke. I want to say is that we have gone through actually 4 eras. First era is what we call local base or local product base. Second era is what we call export product base. The third era is knowledge based era. Now is innovation based era. We have not reached to that level yet. So we are trying to catch up in terms of innovation era so that we are able to have our own original brand manufacturing. We are now still stuck at OEM, original equipment manufacturing. That's what your question is. This is important in the sense that we must have a lot of creative and innovative graduates that they are able to do a lot of R&D in the universities at the same time at the private institution or private enterprise. This is what like European Union, USA or China or Japan, but Japan also now in terms of creativity also not able to match with some China company already. Because creativity, you need to face the risk of failure. Because what you do 100 times, 99 times you will fail. Maybe one time you will success. So because of 1%, you will create a unicorn company. So now Malaysian institutions of higher learnings must encourage innovativeness and creativity. This is my answer to your questions. I hope when you check the ChatGPT, I don't think answer like that. No? Thank you.
Deputy VC for academic, I guess. So, young man, you are thought leader.
Yeah, I'll try my best itself. Yeah, I think I faced similar what they call that question as well. Every time when my team and myself, when we do work in other countries, say for example Philippines, Thailand, Cambodia, in English language, people always question is, are you a Singaporean? Right? So I think I do agree to a certain extent that I think the English language is a key itself for us to be able to go globally itself. Right? So I think, I hope the Ministry of Education itself can look into this itself and put the importance of it, right? I think in terms of the question itself is, I think what is key is basically from the education itself to create students even before they actually finish the what we call that their post-secondary education itself, is to actually to develop them in terms of few areas. Number one itself, if we talk about basically soft skill. Number two itself is hard skill. This is already what they are actually being taught, right? The third one is basically what is missing itself is the entrepreneurship skill. So that's where creativity, agileness itself comes under the area itself. So I think these are the basically my thoughts itself in terms of how we can actually move forward.
Thank you. Since we only have 5 minutes left for us to enjoy our time with these experts, So I'm afraid that I will not let any more Q&A, but I would like to ask, not asking, but perhaps what's your wish first to Prof in 1 minute for future business and startup perspective. What's your wish in 1 minute?
I think for my closing remark itself, I think it would be what is key itself is in order for us to move up the value chain, right? I think this is basically the next phase for our country itself, is to look into basically the upskilling and reskilling of the existing workforce, right? And of course to prepare our future graduates itself to be able to take on the future skills. I think this is very key, right? And to do that, one of the model that I would like to propose itself is to look into the tripartite model, where you have a collaboration itself between the industry, the what they call it, the industry, the academia, right? And as well as basically what they call that, the students themselves, right? Where they are able to basically, we actually pair them itself into the workforce, right? And so from there itself, we are able to basically reduce the burden of the government in terms of financing. So this is basically my takeaway point as well.
Okay, thank you. So next to Mr. President.
Okay, my wish is to revamp, just now this question, is to revamp national education blueprint so that we can have the graduates that have more creativity, they are able to contribute more.
That's another round. So, what's your wish, Tan Sri, for excellence in Tibet and Malaysia from FMM perspective?
For me, I would like to have a single authority to handle all the Tibet matters, because Tibet ada di sini, ada di sana. Mana-mana tempat pun ada. So, how to have this single authority to manage the Tibet so that we are able to produce the right graduates as the preferred choice for the parents and also the first choice from the employers. This is my wish. Okay. And so that they are able to move out from B40 and they will have reasonable incomes, and they have a sense of proudness that I come from Tibet, especially I come from UTHM Tibet faculty. Okay.
Okay, Tan Sri, may you live longer. All right, let's see. From MITI industry perspective, what's your wish for Tibet excellence in Malaysia?
Well, just to follow up the point by Tan Sri So, I think perhaps having a single agency would be the ideal scenario. But I think what's more important perhaps, I think the reason why Tan Sri suggested of a single agency or single authority is to ensure that the policies are coherent, yeah, across all the relevant ministries and agencies. So perhaps, maybe this is a challenge I throw out to UTHM. If you can reach out to all your peers in all the public universities to have, say, 1 or 1.5 day syndicated lab session amongst all your peers, amongst all your public universities, and invite the relevant ministries, including from the industry association, say FMM, to have a single roadmap as far as Tvet is concerned that is aligned with the industry needs, as well as the priorities by the government in attracting the right type of investments. Now in the case of MITI, we want to attract investments that are technology intensive, capital intensive, that can provide high skilled, high value or high income jobs to our fellow Malaysians. That's most important. So that's a challenge I throw to UTHM. Yeah, you don't have to wait for the ministry to initiate this. If you can initiate among your ministries, then I think the ministries, we will support you. Thank you.
Thank you. So that's a job for Prof. Rabia lah, and so the team. because she's representing the Vice Chancellor today. Okay, right. So may I just to say thank you for the most outstanding panels that we have today, and I can only in 1 minute summarize a few things here that lost. Okay, right. Anyway, but it is about competitiveness. It is about creativity and innovation, meaning going into not revamping the education system at all as proposed by Tan Sri, perhaps because that's arguable, that's another round. So perhaps I would say is how to have harmonization between these two. And now it's almost harmonized with MQA as a single qualification body, but having JPK or NOS within the framework. And also, on behalf of the government represented by Dato C, let's M-tone, okay, have a one short, syndicated lab just for this purpose, and invite possibly Dato C and also Minister of Higher Education or Minister of MITI, both, okay, because the money comes from MITI still, I hope. Okay, so, and that's when we could decide on something. And I hope that does not make another round of time-wasting activities. So I hope with that, I don't have any much to say. As moderator, I enjoyed very much. And what I will do, I will write a short, essays for that, just to say that this is a meaningful forum. And that's why that you mean it, I hope. And that's why I will write accordingly. So don't say to me later on that, oh, I didn't say that. So I will go back to UTHM TV and show on you. Okay. So thank you very much, and I hope that the audience would like to give a very big hand to our panel. And back
before I end, I concur with three. My parting word is jangan tunggu lama-lama, buat saja.
All right, thank you to Yang Berbahagia Datuk, the moderator, and all the panelists for the outstanding. Please be seated because we are going to proceed with the memento of appreciation. Yep. All right, so now please welcome Yang Berbahagia Professor Technologist Dr. Rabiah Ahmad, the Deputy Vice Chancellor, Research and Innovations of UTHM, accompanied by Associate Professor Technologist Dr. Aida Mustafa, Director of ICRC, to deliver a token of appreciation to the panelists and the moderator. Please welcome. Alright, first of all, please welcome Yang Berbahagia Datuk Sri Norazman Ayob, Deputy Secretary General, Industry Ministry of International Trade and Industry, MITI, to receive the memento of appreciation from UTHM. Thank you, Yang Berbahagia Datuk Sri. Next, I would like to call upon Yang Berbahagia Tan Sri Datuk Thian Lai, President of the Federations of Malaysian Manifacturers (FMM), to receive the memento of appreciation from UTHM. Thank you, Tan Sri. Next, I would like to call upon Mr. Paul Yeo, the Chief Executive Officer from Confexhub Sdn, to receive the memento of appreciation from UTHM. Thank you, Mr. Paul. And next, I would like to call upon the moderator, the outstanding moderator, Yang Berbahagia Professor Dato Dr. Wahid bin Razzaly, the moderator for today's event, to receive the memento of appreciation. And last but not least, please welcome Associate Professor Technologist Dr. Aida Mustafa to deliver the memento of appreciation to Yang Berbahagia Professor Technologist Dr. Rabiah Ahmad, the Deputy Vice Chancellor, Research and Innovation of UTHM. Thank you to Yang Berbahagia Prof for your presence today. So ladies and gentlemen, as we bring this forum to a close, I would like to take a moment to express my gratitude to all of our esteemed guests, panelists and moderators for making this event a success. Thank you to our guests and audience for taking the time to attend and participate in this forum. Your insight and contribution have been invaluable in our discussion, and we have all benefited from your expertise and knowledge, especially for those who are throwing the idea and question. And we also like to express our appreciation to all the panelists here for sharing their insight and perspective on the important issue we have discussed today. Your contributions have been instrumental in making this forum a success, and we are grateful for your commitment and dedication. And finally, we want to thank you to Moderator for keeping us on track and facilitating our discussion. Yang Berbahagia Datuk, your hard work and dedication have been essential to the success of this event, and we are grateful for all that you have done, Yang Berbahagia Datuk. So once again, I want to express my heartfelt gratitude to all who have participated in this forum. Thank you for your time, thank you for your insight, and thank you for your contribution. For those who are joining us online, don't forget to record your attendance via the link that we share in the comment section. Thank you. So with that, I end this session with wabillahi taufiq wa hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We would like to have a photo session, and we would like to invite all the esteemed guests to be in the middle of the hall so that everybody will have a capture in the photo session. Okay, so please everybody gather into the middle of the hall so that everybody will be in the photo.